Hi, I'm Lisa Cook. I'm 61 years old and I live in Mississauga. Dad was Catholic and my mom was Christian. And my mom decided that we would go to a Christian church. And we went to church every Sunday to go to Sunday school. And then once a month, we stayed at church. We went to the 11 o'clock church service for communion. But it was a tradition. It was a Sunday thing. And church and God weren't really a part of our day-to-day life outside of that when I was growing up. When I was 16, I was working at a grocery store and met Terry. And I thought he was just the cutest. And we started dating. He introduced me to this world of friends and parties that I didn't know existed. And he really took me into a world that I didn't really know anything about because my life had just been about living at home and going to school and being the good little girl, I guess, and doing everything that I was told to do. On my 17th birthday, I told Mom and Dad that we were going out for dinner, and we packed up our stuff and we drove to Ottawa. I left a 5-page letter for Mom and Dad, and that's how they found out I'd left home. Terry was leaving, and because I thought I was hopelessly in love, I wanted to be with him, so I said I was going to go too. We left for Ottawa in October, and at the end of October, and then I didn't come back home again until Christmas. And I remember walking in, and my dad looked at me and said, "Your mother and I know you're pregnant," and I felt like the bottom of my world had dropped out. There weren't single parents like there are single parents today, so I had to get married. And that was Christmas, and then March 1st, I was 5 months pregnant, and Terry and I were getting married. For me, it was I wanted my baby. And if this was the way I was going to have my baby, then I would get married. It was good for the first 4 months while I was pregnant with Christopher, but the day I brought Christopher home from the hospital, the abuse started. Terry became very violent and very angry and very abusive. He would come home from work and he didn't like what was for dinner, or he didn't like what I did that day, or he didn't like something that I said. He would beat me and he would become abusive. 43 years ago, physical abuse wasn't what it is today. So it wasn't like I could go to my mom and dad and say, this is what's happening, or I couldn't go to a shelter. There was no support like there is today. And I began to feel like it was I did something or I said something and I deserved it. I got pregnant with Ryan and the beatings intensified. And I remember being in mid-pregnancy with Ryan. Terry came home from work one day and Christopher was crying and he beat Christopher. He beat my baby. You can hurt me, but don't hurt my babies. It's warped, but I said, it's okay that he beats me, but it's not okay he beats my kids. And I didn't want them to grow up with that. So I asked him to leave, and he did. I drank a lot, and I definitely hung out with the wrong group of people. I lost my boys for 3 months to Children's Aid because I couldn't cope. I couldn't cope with life. I couldn't cope with what I was feeling. And I wanted to get my life back together, but I didn't know how because I didn't have a support. I didn't belong to a church. I had no self-esteem and no self-respect and had no idea who I was. Every night I go to bed and I think, well, maybe tomorrow will be a little bit better. I met my husband through a mutual friend. When we met, it was one of those things where you just knew you were going to be married. He never did really come out and say, will you marry me? We knew. We started dating in March, and then July of the following year, we got married. We've certainly had our ups and we've had our downs, and he has stood by me. I kind of figured everybody in my life, well, I wasn't worthy, so I would push people away. I would try not to get too close. I started to pray more. My prayers were, please, Jesus, don't take Mom, because I'm not ready to lose my mother. I'll never be ready to lose my mom, and let her be okay. She fainted in the schoolyard and picking up my brother's kids. And of course, they called an ambulance and they took her to the hospital, and they found out she needed heart surgery. And it was within 2 weeks she had her surgery. And I remember begging God, don't take my mom, make her okay. Because I didn't want to lose my mom, my best friend. The next day, we got the call from the hospital. And we went to the hospital, and they said that the machines were keeping her alive. They couldn't take her off the ventilator because she wasn't expelling the anesthetic, and it was the machines that were keeping her alive. And we had to make a decision to pull the plug. I miss her every day. But I had to trust God. And it was the first time in my life I really trusted God. And I lost my mom, but I got this relationship that I didn't expect I would have with Jesus. I know God was there, and I can see, in retrospect, I see that hope that tomorrow would be a better day, and I can see that it was like this thread that was just weaving through that never let me give up. And that thread to me is there now. But now I have a relationship with Jesus, and I know when I have a really bad day, tomorrow's another day, and His mercies are made new. January 2017, I guess. Let's start the new year, and we're going to go to City Church. We'll check it out. And we walked in, and they had these signs everywhere, welcome home, and it made me smile. I felt like I'd come home. I felt like I was home, and I was meant to be there. And Dana and when we sat at the back, and the worship team came out, and I was blown away. I felt Jesus so strong when I was listening to the worship team. And then I found the podcast, and I'd listened to the message in between, and I just kept really connecting with Jesus, and came back after, in October, after the trailer season closed. And as we were looking toward opening the season last May, neither one of us wanted to give up going to church. God asked us to sell our trailer, and we did. Somebody reached over to the front row and got Kleenex, and being the nosy little Parker that I am, I was, where are those Kleenex going? And I looked over, and there was somebody in the auditorium, and she was crying. I knew right then and there God was telling me I needed to connect with her. And I went running out. I introduced myself. I said, you look like you could use a hug. And she started to cry, and I started to cry, and we introduced ourselves. And she was new to City Church. And I thought, how awesome is that God moved me to not just sit in the back anymore, but to be there for somebody else. Isn't that what Jesus did? He brought us all in. He just wants us to reach out to each other. We're not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'll never be perfect. I'm His child. And He loves me.